Hello, and welcome back to my channel. We are back with kind of another combo video. I have a couple Sam portraits that I did, and then one large painting that, I got it to a place that I liked, but never really had the motivation to finish it. I thought it would make a cool poster concept, but we'll get to that whenever we get there. So the first two Sam concepts were just really me doing some painting, working with large shapes, the same thing that is normally going on this channel. I love to work with large shapes. I like to go in with color. If I'm not going to do a value study, then I typically stay within skin tone area. I feel like I don't do a lot of, it sounds funny to say, but clothed portraits. That's not usually the focus. It's usually a headshot or a bust of sorts. There's not normally a lot of fabric going on, although I am capable of doing so and have in the past. It's not something I gravitate towards when I'm wanting to relax or have fun. Portraits are definitely I have spare time and want to do something creative. So I wanted to work off the screen cap from the trailer where we see old Sam for the first time, and I loved how bright that cap was. And of course, I like him with the white hair. It was so shocking and different, and it just looked really cool with that dark backdrop of the scene. And so I started by just blocking in the general shape of his head and then kind of filling in the hair color. I did attempt to kind of mix in colors that maybe weren't there to begin with. So something that I've been trying to do, and you will definitely see it as more art videos come out, is adding more. I don't even know what the word would be for it. It's, I think it's color decay or chromatic aberration. It's called CD, maybe color dodge. I'm not sure, but it's a really neat thing, and I saw it in a heavy paint video. They have a whole tool dedicated to it in the app, and you can change basically how much noise and disruption there is in the color. And something I've realized is I love when people pick a color and then change the hue. So the value stays the same, but the color changes. So maybe you have this mid-tone, but it goes from pink to purple to green to blue all in the same area. So you're getting these really awesome varieties of color without it actually looking that different to the human eye. What it really does is just makes it feel more alive, more interesting to look at without actually losing the value, which is the craziest thing to me. Something that I find really interesting are how colors inherently have a value, and not all colors are created equal. So, a yellow might look lighter than a blue, even if they are the exact same on the color picker chart. And it's just because we see certain colors as brighter, and it's one of the reasons digital artists can get so messed up when they're first starting out. And it's something that I think held me back for a long time, was just not fully understanding that colors have a value all by themselves, that sometimes we're not that aware of if we're not really thinking about it. So this one, I went back to black and white. I felt like I needed to get a sense of the form and the values of his face. Now, the reason that I'm painting Old Man Sam is because I'm wanting to paint him in a color portrait, which is part of a larger painting, a poster that I was thinking of creating, which would have Tomorrow, Sam, Lou, and then some images that were sort of motifs from the game, like the cupids and such. And so I kind of felt like I needed more practice with his face, especially him as Old Man Sam, because his face is just it's a little different than how it looks whenever he's young Sam. Not that I even think they're that different, but something about the light tones of the hair with his skin, it kind of throws off his whole look. Just like if you saw someone with, dark brown eyebrows and then they bleached them, it would just kind of throw you off. I had thought at this point that I wanted to draw Higgs, and I really thought I was going to do that, and I went pretty hard with it, but there was a point where I felt like it wasn't going well, that I wasn't getting the likeness, and I stopped. And looking back at the footage, it's always funny to look back because it looked really good. I think I just kind of made the upper lip, I shouldn't have turned it as much as I did, and the rest of it was fine. And it was so funny at the time because I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever drawn. And so I just scrapped the whole thing and went back to trying to draw Sam, which, it's all good. The great thing about art is I have a real job. YouTube, art, Twitter, all that stuff is additional. I mean, I don't even really make money from it, honestly. Like, at this point, when I'm recording this, I'm not even monetized. I have, the chat features. You can't get monetized till you have 1,000 followers, so, we're working on it. But, that's not my focus. It'd be great to get paid, but it's not my focus. Like, my focus when creating art is just, engaging with the content, engaging with, other people like you guys who like it. And I don't know, I guess yapping, as the kids say, because sometimes I just love to get the thoughts out. And I'm not the most outgoing person socially. I can be in small bursts, but it takes a lot out of me to be in a social setting. I'm really distractible. Even if I'm on my ADHD medication, I'm always really nervous and anxious in crowds, and it'll be fun for an hour. But then I'm like, oh, I'm drained, I'll end up with a migraine from just, I think, the experience of so many sensory overload sensations of people talking and, just things like that. And so this is almost like a easier way for me to reach out and connect with people because I can kind of do it on my own time. I can feel whenever I'm needing to be social in a way like this, like tonight, and I can record and I can talk and I can reach out and then post that video, and whenever I'm feeling capable of interacting and socializing again, then I can interact through the comments. And it's definitely a different way of socializing, and maybe not the best way, because I could see where you would lack a little bit of connection with someone if you never really meet them. But I think whenever you have a day job, and obviously I do now, I get that amount of people interaction now that's healthy, but I don't get to, spew art and Death Stranding and all the fun stuff on them and to people that actually care about it. And so it's nice to have a place like this that I can come and connect with you guys and talk about things that I like that just aren't, well, first of all, well known around here, and second of all, it's not that mainstream. It's definitely more mainstream than some interests, and maybe even more, like, art is so niche that if I do find someone to talk about art with, they probably have their own, very hyper-specific ideas about art. And then, at least with Death Stranding, if someone knows about it, for the most part, that's always a surprise, but it also makes it easy for us to connect because we're like, oh, wow, you know about this piece of media, and there's kind of a canon to talk about. But, I mean, I don't know if it's easy for you guys, but I don't just walk up to people and be like, do you play this video game? Because I would like to lore dump on you or talk about it or, whatever. I have, however, started wearing the shirt, and that has been a conversation starter, and it's definitely one of the ways that I've been able to connect in real life more. It's just by kind of wearing something recognizable, and then people who recognize it have been pretty good to come up and be like, oh my gosh, is that a Death Stranding shirt? Because they're like me, probably. You don't see us in the wild. And it's kind of funny in that way. That's when I first got diabetes. So I have type 1, but I got it in a really weird way. So, lore dump. When I was 21, I was totally healthy, totally fine. All of a sudden, I got a cold on vacation. We drove to like a national park. I got sick, didn't feel very well, and 2 weeks later my pancreas died. And it was the craziest thing. They said that I had basically had an autoimmune disorder that was triggered. It killed my pancreas, and I've been on an insulin pump and shots ever since. I started with shots, moved into like a robotic pancreas, and one of the things that I started doing because I felt like there was no other type 1 diabetic anywhere is I started wearing it in places that people could see it. I'd wear it low on my arm, I'd wear short sleeves, I'd wear my Dexcom on my forearm where people could see it. And it was such a conversation starter. There were so many people who had type 1 diabetes that I never would have known because they took shots or they would hide their insulin pod under their shirts and stuff. And they would come up and they'd be like, oh my gosh, you have it too. And I think that approach is like a really good approach to things. Like wearing the thing that you want to talk about allows people to kind of connect with you that maybe you couldn't have found otherwise, because I think I am a closet nerd. Obviously not to anyone who like has talked to me for more than 5 minutes, but as someone who's not horribly social or outgoing or going to just like walk up to random people and start a conversation usually, I come off as very serious and stiff and kind of like that I don't want to be bothered. I have a horrible resting face that just makes me look mean at all times. My thinking face looks so mean. And so it's really hard to reach out because, some people make friends just because they look nice. If I make friends, it's because like I have put in the effort. I have tried to talk to them. I've tried to show that I'm not as mean as I look. I try to be helpful. I don't know if anybody else has that problem of like you look not nice. And then like my outfits generally are so serious. They're like solid colors, khaki pants, like nothing super fun and exciting. And then I have like long boring hair because I don't know, I don't chop it off anymore. So I just look kind of boring and kind of mean. And so wearing different merch from media that I really enjoy has helped me, I don't know, like make connections, make friends, and then of course this channel has really helped me branch out. Which, speaking of connections, let's talk about this painting that I'm doing. Now, the whole concept behind it is that if tomorrow is Lou or related to Lou, that I wanted to show that maybe Fragile and Drawbridge have influence over Sam, maybe Higgs and Amelie have influence over Tomorrow, and that Lou is sort of like this middle ground and maybe has influences from both the living and the dead. And then up top, they actually kind of look like syringes, but I wanted to draw the cupids floating overhead, kind of like a halo of sorts, something like that. And then I really wanted to have Higgs's gloves be like horns above Tomorrow's head, because Fragiles are kind of like angel wings behind Sam, and then have those kind of morph into octopus arms that are wrapping around Lou. But at some point I just sort of lost that motivation to paint this. I wasn't really liking it that much. I had waited a really long time to go back to it, and so I ended up thinking, well, what if I scrapped this idea and redid it? And this is actually where another painting's idea came from. I've really been thinking about Tomorrow being the moon and reflecting other people's light, and Amelie being the sun, and she is kind of her own source of energy. And what that got me thinking about is, Sam is almost like the eclipse, because when he's around, he sort of negates Amelie's influence and is able to radicalize her and change her in ways that other people cannot. And if Tomorrow is a reflection of others, she's as bright or as dark as her surroundings. And so I started thinking about them in these concepts of cycles, lunar cycles, solar cycles. And, space is a big thing in Death Stranding. Well, I guess space as in planes, like the spiritual plane, the real world plane, the digital plane. And so after I thought about all of that, I began painting Tomorrow's hand and her using her powers because I thought, well, the Higgs hands aren't working. And at this point, I was like, let's try something different. So I did try for that. And then that was kind of what pushed me to change the entirety of the painting into something a little different, a little more dramatic. And while the painting didn't come to fruition and wasn't finished, I didn't mind because I felt like I worked through a lot of like theories and lore and ideas that I have been interested in for a while, and it was really satisfying to work through. One of the things that I kind of wanted to do was have have Sam holding Higgs's mask and Tomorrow having Amale's um, upside down effigy behind her. Although I guess it's right side up. But what I was thinking is that it would almost be like she was the other half of that. And so maybe if you had put those two together, they'd be like a full sunburst. But I'm still really curious what will happen with the effigy, what the lore will be. At this point, when I'm recording it, we still don't know anything. And I'm sure it'll be funny to you guys watching these videos to like hear me talking in the past while I'm sure I'm already talking to you about different things in the future. But I know that there is going to quickly become a time that I am not going to have time for YouTube. And I would like to be able to be consistent as much as possible because I would love to have enough followers to monetize next summer and continue like live streaming and painting and just having fun on the channel. And it would be cool to like make money and maybe like buy a video game with it. That would be cool. But who knows? I don't even understand how people get to be like famous gamers. I think you have to have like a personality for it and like a lot of energy. And my energy is so funny because it'll be so high and then so low. And then I'll go for a while and then I'll be like, oh, I need to go be like a cottagecore gnome in the woods. And I'll just kind of like go off grid for a while. And, I don't know. I think that's fine. I think everybody's different. Now, I had forgotten that I live streamed this on Twitch, and that was the reason that you see the Be Right Back on here. For a little bit, I was trying to live stream on Twitch, but it ended up being way more of a process than like live streaming on the PS5 was. And honestly, it kind of stressed me out and I didn't paint as well whenever I was painting live. And so I kind of went away from that. But during this time, I was thinking, well, what if I kind of quartered the poster and made like each of the corners something a little different, like the effigy, the sun, the moon, and something else. But it was really at this time that I feel like I lost the vision and was kind of bored with it and just decided, I think I'm just going to call it good and move on. I loved the way that I colored Sam. I thought he looked really precious and I loved the color of his cheeks. And I felt like Tomorrow was really successful. I kind of wish I had rendered her a little more fully because I kind of would have liked to have cropped her and just made her her own painting, kind of like I've done with some of the Fragile paintings. And I may end up going back and doing that because who knows how much inspiration I'll get from just playing the game. And I really kind of want to draw Rainy and Tarman. Tarman is so fun. I don't know why I haven't drawn him yet. He has such a cool outfit. And then Deadman he was like the OG. I loved him. And I hope that I like him again. I hope he doesn't betray me or die. My worst fear is that Deadman will die in Death Stranding 2, but who knows? Here, I was thinking about doing her about herself and like creating a dress and like having her kind of like coming out of it, almost like she was the Amelie. But it just didn't work. And again, I think I'm becoming more and more okay with just letting ideas and inspiration kind of go away and just sort of play out as much as they can and then kind of walking away from them. In the end, I had the barest idea of a chiral sort of wings around Sam, but I don't know. So this is where I got to. Let me know if you have any like ideas or maybe how I should rework this, but that was really that was the end of it. That was where I got to. That was where the motivation left me, and I decided to move on to other things that were more exciting to me. I want to know what you're doing creatively, gaming wise, in your life. What are you doing? Are you having fun? Are things going well for you? I want to know. I miss you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!